Welcome to the Love and Guts podcast. This is your third time, would you believe? Last time we did it was in 2021. So welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back again.
It is great to be back. I was just actually admiring your background there, all nice and white and crisp. But I'm actually going to be attaching those two podcast episodes that we did to the show notes. So please go back and check those out. One of them was on what we're going to talk about today. So that's sort of skin gut access. We spoke about acne in 2021. So we'll be speaking about that today, looking at any updates and various other things. I'm really excited to get into this conversation. But before we do, I'm going to read out your bio, just in case people may not be familiar with who you are. So as I mentioned today, we're speaking with Dr. Julie Greenberg, a naturopathic doctor who has dedicated her career to researching and educating on the natural treatment of chronic skin disease. She's deeply passionate about the role of evidence-based natural therapies in skin health, and she believes many of the chronic conditions we face today can be improved or even healed through a root cause approach. Julie's journey into naturopathic medicine began with her own health challenges. After being diagnosed with Hashimoto's hypothyroidism while thriving in a successful career in finance, she discovered firsthand the limitations of conventional care. That curiosity led her to question research and ultimately retrain, earning her doctorate from Bastyr University, one of the world's leading naturopathic medical schools. She's also an expertly trained herbalist, has studied with dermatology experts at Seattle Children's Hospital and the University of Washington Medical School, and has published peer-reviewed work on dermatology in learnskin.com. Today, through her clinic, the Center for Integrative and Naturopathic Dermatology, Julie brings together functional medicine, herbalism, and dermatology to provide innovative, science-based treatments for chronic skin conditions. So you've also just written another book, haven't you? Can you tell us a little bit about that
Yes,
title,
I
what that's
was.
about?
Yeah, it's I was lucky enough to be asked to be a co-author. So it's the Holistic Psoriasis Nutrition and Management Guide, and it's really the only book out there that approaches psoriasis from this kind of holistic view. So we do cover some conventional pharmaceutical treatments and what's available to psoriasis sufferers. But then we go into herbs and diet. There's a 28-day nutrition plan, and it was co-authored by myself, a nutritionist, and two dermatologists. So hopefully, if people are suffering from psoriasis, they're going to find this to be really helpful information. We go into the gut-skin connection and psoriasis, specifically what is that relationship. And again, it's the first book of its kind, so we're
Is
proud of
that
it.
available now?
Yep, it's on Amazon. It
Oh,
came out
amazing.
in Q2 of this year.
Great. So I'll attach that to the show notes. And great for practitioners too. I mean, even if they know the knowledge, it's sometimes in the delivery to their patient that these books can become really useful too, explaining the connections and all of those sorts of things. So I'm definitely going to be
Yes.
getting my hands on that. That's for sure. So your clinic, the Center for Integrative and Naturopathic Dermatology, focuses on uncovering systemic drivers of skin disease. Where does gut health fit into your diagnostic and treatment approach?
So gut health is core. There's nothing without gut health for
Mm-hmm.
my patients and my clinic. And then I also have another website, rootcausedermatology.com, where I have a training course for healthcare practitioners to teach them how to treat in this method. I feel like there's a lot of kind of general talk about gut skin connection, but most practitioners who treat derm diseases, they're not actually applying it in practice. For me, it is core and central. Every single patient who comes through my clinic, the very first thing we do is we run two gut microbiome tests. One is a stool test, and the other is an oat or organic acid test, which is a urine test. And then I look at the results of those two tests, and it covers everything from bacterial organisms living in there, fungal organisms, digestive function. Just get like a whole wide range of markers from these two tests. And every single patient, it doesn't matter whether you're suffering from eczema or acne or psoriasis or alopecia areata or rosacea, whatever, that's where we start, is with the gut microbiome. It is so critical and foundational for skin health and for these chronic long-term inflammatory skin diseases. We have to look at what's happening in the gut.
Yeah, we absolutely do, don't we? I feel like you'd be missing a big part of the puzzle if you weren't looking at the gut in relation to the skin. So can we talk, because what actually causes acne is one of the most Googled skin questions. Could you break down the classic pathophysiology and how gut factors like inflammation or dysbiosis may contribute? In particular, can you run through the mTOR pathway and FOXO1 in how that's involved in acne development?
Yeah, I think the first thing in talking about acne, first thing that blew my mind and completely shifted the way I look at acne is that it is not a disease that should actually be considered normal in humans. So when we look at indigenous populations around the world, whether they are living in South America in the Amazon rainforest or in Papua New Guinea, Okinawa in Japan prior to World War II, anywhere in the world, if we look at indigenous cultures, there is no acne. I'm going to say that again.
Yeah.
No acne is zero acne. They don't have a word for it. They've never seen it. They don't know what it is. So it's not a like normal human condition. You know, switch over to Western society. Has any of your listeners, you know, raise your hand out there if you've never had a pimple? No, almost nobody can raise their hand. At some point, we've all had a pimple, even if we didn't suffer from, you know, chronic severe acne. We've all dealt with acne pimples at some point. And that is so shocking to me because again, I think it's so normalized now in Western society. We just think, oh, that's normal to be having breakouts on your face or your chest or your back, but it's really not normal. And so we have to shift our perspective and start from that point that it is abnormal to have acne. Then we start asking, okay, if that's abnormal, if we're not supposed to have acne and indigenous people don't have it, what is going wrong? And so we start to look at, well, what are these factors of our Western lifestyle that are making things go awry then? Of course, our food is a big one. What we eat in Westernized society, and again, doesn't really matter if you're living in Australia or the United States or, you know, Japan, if you're in a Westernized society, you're eating a very different diet than an indigenous diet. And indigenous diets, of course, all over the world are varied and different, but they all are fundamentally rooted in whole natural foods of their region. They all are plant forward and there's a lot of fiber in it. There's not a lot of sugar. There's no processed foods in, you know, indigenous diets. So that's kind of the starting point. And, you know, I'll speak primarily to the United States, the American SAD or standard American diet. We have a lot of dairy, a lot of wheat, a lot of sugar, and a lot of fat. And you mentioned this mTOR pathway. It stands for mammalian target rapamycin. It's just a fancy kind of acronym for different pathways within the cell. And mTOR is responsible for growth. So mTOR is good. You know, it's not bad, it's good. We need growth within the cell, we need growth within an animal. Even if you're older and you're hit a mature place, cells are dying all the time. They need to be renewed and revitalized. So mTOR is a normal process. But when that mTOR process gets pushed on too hard, that's where we start to see problems like acne. Because the cell, so let's take areas where we get acne, which is mostly the face, but also the chest and the back. So what's unique to this area? Why are we looking at acne really here? No one gets acne like on the front of their shin. That's not the point. So the face, chest, neck, and back, these are high sebum producing areas. And sebum is just oil. Every hair follicle has a little gland called a sebaceous gland. And the hair follicle produces oil. And the face, neck, chest, and back are high sebum producing areas. So we normally and naturally produce higher levels of oils in these areas. Well, acne is this overproduction of oil, and mTOR is what's responsible for it. So mTOR out of whack, you just start cranking sebum production. Well, it's just zoom in on the face. So now instead of having a normal production of sebum, which we want to moisturize the skin, to lubricate the hair follicle, we have too much sebum or oil being produced. And that's going to be the kickoff point in acne. And then there's a cascade that happens. We can have an overproduction of skin cells. You get a clogging or gumming up of the hair follicle. Bacteria or yeast like Malassezia starts to feed on that overgrowth of oil and skin. We get inflammation, and then that leads to pimples. And there's, everything from kind of minor little pimples to very severe nodulocystic acne, where people get these very large, deep cysts in the skin. Some of them never come to a head, and they're very painful and very destructive and cause a lot of scarring. And that whole process is that mTOR pathway gone out of whack. And our food system is really a lot of what's pushing on that mTOR and making it go crazy. So sugar, wheat, meat, dairy, all of those push mTOR over the edge. And again, we don't see that in high volumes in the diet of indigenous people. We do see it in high volumes in the diet of Western society. And the kind of, yang to the yin of mTOR is this FOXO1. And, all the things that we're not eating enough of, like fiber and vegetables, that's the anti-inflammatory kind of cascade that would keep mTOR in check. So really everything about our diet is set up to trigger mTOR and trigger acne. Not enough fruits and vegetables, not enough fiber, all of the anti-inflammatory things we've pushed down, and all of the inflammatory things pushing on mTOR we're eating too much of. And yeah, so that's one of the main things, is looking at diet and that difference between, what we're eating now that we really shouldn't be eating.
And are there other things that influence that mTOR pathway?
Yeah, I mean, systemic inflammation. So, not just the food, but like a lack of exercise can create inflamed states. Other sorts of diseases, anything that's going to cause inflammation in the system is going to push on mTOR pathway.
And you speak a lot about H. pylori contributing to acne's underlying mechanisms. Can we get into that a little bit more? And also, because it is a little bit controversial out there in the practitioner world, to treat or not to treat, where your head is with all of that.
So
Because I know that you're a bit of a fan of treating.
Yes, and look, there's a lot we don't know still about H. pylori. So maybe, there's things that H. pylori is doing that's good for the system, but I see it in almost all of my acne patients. And well, we don't know for sure 100%. I can't say H. pylori causes acne. When I tried to dig into the research and figure out, well, why are all of my acne patients having H. pylori, and what role could H. pylori be playing in driving the acne? This is where I got to. So we've told the story of mTOR, right? mTOR is driving the sebum or oil production. So I mentioned FOXO1. FOXO1 is also in the cell, and FOXO1 can be either in the nucleus or in the cytoplasm of the cell. This is a little technical. When FOXO1 gets put into the nucleus, it is in the driving seat, and it can actively keep mTOR under control and say, you know what, mTOR, you're going a little bit too crazy. I'm going to rein you back in and shut you down, and you're not going to produce all that sebum, and just calm down. So FOXO1 is in the driver's seat in the nucleus of the cell. But when FOXO1 gets kicked out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm, that's like a penalty box. FOXO1 can't do anything, and mTOR is just like, nah, I'm gonna go crazy and produce all the sebum I want, and you can't stop me. And FOXO1 can't. It has to be in the nucleus. Well, what we've seen in studies with H. pylori is that in human gastric cells, so in the stomach, H. pylori kicks FOXO1 out of the nucleus, out of the driver's seat, and into the cytoplasm or penalty box. So we know that that happens in the gastric cells in the stomach where H. pylori lives. I have still not been able to find any research looking on the impact of H. pylori and FOXO1 in like sebocytes in the cells of the sebaceous glands. So for me right now, it's a working theory that it is possibly performing the same thing, and that when we treat the H. pylori, FOXO1 is able to get back into the nucleus of the sebocytes and help control, really dampen mTOR and therefore control the sebum production. But it's a hypothesis. There's not a lot of research on H. pylori and acne. And so, I can't say for sure, but I see that when I treat H. pylori, things get better. And if H. pylori, for whatever reason, ramps up again, the acne does tend to get worse. So again, I'm not citing a PubMed study. This is just,
Your
my kind of
observation.
putting together pieces and hypothesis. But it is why I treat H. pylori in all of my acne patients.
And are you still testing H. pylori via stool mostly, or are you doing the urea breath test? Is there a preferred way of testing for you?
Yeah, there's a stool test I use. It's a quant PCR, and I find that it's the most sensitive to H. pylori, to having it show up. And then when I treat it, it will clear. I've had too many patients get negatives on like kind of conventional, like I'm not sure what you have in Australia, but we have like LabCorp and Quest here. And on those H. pylori stool tests, sometimes it won't catch it. On the urea breath test, sometimes it won't catch it. So I like the quant PCR stool test that I use. I find that it's the most sensitive, and it will pick it up, and then it will show me whether I've really gotten rid of it after treatment.
And I know it's not a conversation about H. pylori, but because you've seen that link there with a lot of your skin concerns, or your patients with skin concerns, I'd love to hear your approach. Like some of the things, obviously, it's so nuanced, case by case. But what are some of the things that you're using for H. pylori eradication? Because it's a bit of a tricky one sometimes.
Yeah, so H. pylori in the conventional world, I think, has gotten quite tricky. There used to be triple therapy, and now there's quadruple therapy. And so in the conventional world, they're using PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, which I don't think anyone in the functional world likes, but
No.
to decrease the stomach acid, and then this multiple antibiotics and all sorts of stuff that really messes up the gut microbiome. So of course, that's not the tack that I take. I use all herbs and supplements, and I see it being very efficacious in terms of treating H. pylori. There's different herbs and supplements that I use. Mastic gum is a really ancient substance. It's funny, I went to Greece last summer, and it's even a flavoring there of like ice cream and things, mastic.
Amazing.
But it was used in ancient Greece even back then to quench stomach issues and calm down, indigestion and stuff. But the mastic gum is very useful. There's lots of herbal blends out there of different supplements that combine mastic gum with, some other things. There's a blend, a tea blend. Am I allowed to name
Yep,
names here? I
absolutely.
guess
Go
that's
for
okay.
it.
Okay. Yeah, so some good blends that I like would be like Pyloriplex, Gastromend, Pyloricil. Do them on an empty stomach. H. pylori lives in the stomach. I know it's a pain because I have 3 times a day dosing for patients. And then when I do H. pylori plans, I thought, well, I'm going to try to see if I can do these supplements at the same time as the meals and the other supplements. It's just not as effective. So one kind of pro tip is make sure that you're dosing these products on a patient's empty stomach. It's got to go in there and be able to kill the H. pylori without getting kind of gummed up in food and other supplements. There's a tea called Matula tea that comes from South Africa, that is very effective, and they've also got a guarantee. There's, I think, 2 stool tests that they accept where if you're high and then you do the Matula tea for a month, and if you're still high, they'll either refund the money or send a free box of tea. It's not cheap tea, but they do honor the guarantee. Now, unfortunately, in the US with our new tariffs, the tariffs are very expensive alone from South Africa, but depending on, where your practitioners are around the world, it may be a little cheaper to get it. But the tea does come with the guarantee, and it's a blend of herbs and teas from South Africa that does a very good job. So yeah, I've never needed to use pharmaceuticals, and I've always been able to clean up H. pylori with, a couple different rounds and plans. So
Amazing. And hopefully
It's
we do
doable.
see some clinical studies in the future, looking at H. pylori's influence on skin acne. So out of
Yeah,
curiosity,
it's
oh,
interesting.
yeah,
Oh, just that there's so many studies now on the gut microbiome. I just saw one even on multiple sclerosis that now they're kind of drilling down to a couple of species that they think are highly correlated with maybe being responsible for multiple sclerosis via inflammation in the gut and stuff. Um, but there's still a real lack of information on really good gut microbiome testing in specific diseases. So
out of
someday.
curiosity, since our last conversation, 2021, are you seeing a particular type of acne more than others? Are there any types
Just
that are more
adult. I
prevalent?
mean,
Yes, please tell
no,
me,
I would just
adult.
say adult acne, yeah, year after year, it's on the rise. I just get more and more adult patients. It's so frustrating for them. I still think there's this kind of feeling out there that acne is a teenage thing and like, you shouldn't get it after you're a teenager. And while that was true when I was a teenager, it really is not the case. And I feel like every year I just see more and more adult acne. And again, it's like, you think about the teenage years. So mTOR is naturally in overdrive during the teenage years. Why? That's puberty. That's a growth time. So mTOR is it's a good thing. It's on the move. It's growing things, on females, we're getting breasts and hips. On males, we're getting a lot of hair and testosterone is flowing. So we want that to be happening. We need mTOR to be upregulated during puberty. That is why teens, historically are the group most at risk for getting acne. But now I think that there's just so many factors. There's so much part of our food and lifestyle that is inflammatory and triggers mTOR that there's a lot of adult onset acne where it's like they didn't even have maybe bad acne in their teens or 20s. It's coming on maybe in late 20s or 30s. I still deal with people in their 40s with it.
Mm,
Um, so that's the biggest change that I see year over year. It's not like a specific type of acne.
yeah. Interesting though. I've been quite humbled by it this year that, I'm 47. I've always been blessed with having really good skin. It was something that people would always mention, you've got such great skin. And I think I got a little bit cocky about it all, thinking, I've been so lucky. And then all of a sudden, postpartum, still breastfeeding, not because I'm not bleeding, perimenopausal at the age of 47, have I gone straight into menopause? And then the skin starts to kind of have some sort of response, some sort of angry red response. Don't think it's acne, not quite sure, haven't done the investigation. But it has been quite humbling and interesting to see this occur at this age, like what is going on, dietary depletion, postpartum, perimenopause, all of those potential influences, even thyroid could be, a potential driver. So it's so fascinating, when it comes to that
All of that.
expression on skin.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you have this, but rosacea, also has a very strong connection with H. pylori.
Yeah.
And that, can come on. I have a lot of patients postpartum, who started developing rosacea. So yeah, I mean, the skin is really a window into what's happening inside our gut microbiome, our inflammatory state. And certainly as women go through perimenopause and menopause, hormones, depletion of estrogen and testosterone, all of those things can wreak havoc on the skin. So, once my patients are into perimenopause, menopause, not that I'm not thinking about hormones and acne, but I find that the hormonal imbalances, when I fix the gut microbiome, a lot of times the hormones will fall into place.
Yeah.
Once you get into perimenopause, menopause, some hormone replacement therapy, investigating the hormone levels and maybe doing some amount of HRT can be helpful for skin issues in that age group for sure.
Yeah. Fascinating. And what a thing to get people to take action in their health, though, when it is something that's so obvious something that a sign that's so obvious, that they see, others see. All right, I need to do the work. So one large
Yes,
case.
I'm blessed to have the most motivated patients. I mean, and I, my patients obviously, especially when stuff is on the face, I mean, it is very difficult to have skin issues, particularly, on the face as we present to the world. And a lot of times people get mad at their bodies, like, why is this happening? Why are you doing this to me, skin? But I
Yeah.
try to reframe them and say, look, in a way, it's a blessing because you are seeing it. Your body is actually telling you something
Yeah.
is wrong and I need help. Unlike other diseases, there are silent killers out there like pancreatic cancer. We
Yeah.
don't know that someone, or ovarian cancer, the reason why they're so deadly is that the body doesn't signal anything until it's basically too late and stage 4. Now your body is telling you early on, things are imbalanced, there's a problem and I need your help. I can't do this on my own. So
Yeah.
in a way, it's a blessing to be able to have your body show you early on that it needs your help and you can go, find a practitioner to help you.
Absolutely. So, one large case control study linked acne with GI conditions like IBS, GERD, constipation. What does this tell us about the clinical overlap between gut and skin health? And I mean, we've
Yeah, I think
obviously
it's
spoke about the relevance of gut health, but
Yeah, I think it's what we were talking about, that, gut health, it is the foundation of healthy skin. I mean, we are a tube, right? We are connected at the mouth and the anus. The skin is on the outside, the digestive system is on the inside, but we are a tube around
yeah,
our digestive system. And what's happening inside, impacts what's happening outside. All the things that you talked about, IBS, IBD, constipation, these are going to all cause inflammation in the system. And so we could replace acne is correlated with this and also substitute like psoriasis is correlated with this. Alopecia areata is correlated with this. Eczema is correlated with this. None of my patients who are seeing me with these chronic inflammatory diseases, skin diseases, none of them have good, healthy guts. And whether it's you think, okay, well, I'm just constipated, that's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal because
sure is.
what's in our poop, it's toxins, it's everything we're trying to excrete. And if you are holding that in your colon longer than you should, we're reabsorbing all of those toxins and things that the body has worked so hard to get rid of. And we know that things like Parkinson's, constipation is an early warning sign that
Absolutely.
Parkinson's disease could be down the line. Like, it's not just constipation and shoulder shrug. All of these things need to be seriously investigated and treated. There's nothing more important than starting with gut health. It's the foundation of everything, including skin.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So, some systemic reviews have linked dairy and high glycemic index diets to acne, which you've spoken a little bit about. How can we delve into the high glycemic diet component of it a little bit more and that link for those that may not be familiar?
yeah, so high glycemic diet is just really just how a food impacts blood sugar levels. So people are surprised that a piece of white bread is almost as high as like a teaspoon of sugar. Why? Because we break down that bread very quickly and it hits the bloodstream as sugar. Something like a Snickers bar may still contain a lot of sugar, but because there's fat from the peanuts and the other fat in there, it might actually not hit the blood sugar as much as a spike. But we have a pretty high glycemic diet, particularly soft drinks. So if you're drinking Coca-Cola and stuff, I mean, that's just going to hit the blood sugar. So anything that we're doing that's high glycemic, causing high blood sugar, spiking the blood, that is, as we talked about with mTOR, that is just a main trigger for mTOR. So we know that that's going to cause systemic inflammation via the high glycemic, and it's going to push on mTOR. mTOR is looking to build things. What's a good sign that you've got extra resources? Sugar, right? Oh my God, look at all this sugar. We've got all this excess. What am I going to do with it? I got to build something. What should I build? Let's build oil in the sebaceous glands. Let's just keep building oil. So that's, part of what happens with the high glycemic diet. Dairy is its own kind of beast. And I have some patients who, I pretty much take every patient off of dairy when we, acne patient, when we start treating. I have yet to see it being helpful. Some patients I say, like, look, maybe you're going to be able to do some dairy later on, maybe not, but we've got to stop it for now. Why is dairy such a problem for acne? Well, what is dairy in its inception? Like, when we think about why does dairy exist on planet Earth, it is a food that mammal mamas feed mammal babies. And in order to be classified as a mammal, that mother species must produce milk for the infant. So dairy is a totally natural product on planet Earth, and it is absolutely the appropriate food source for an infant mammal of that species. But when we think of every mammal species on planet Earth through the history of time, how does it work? The mama is feeding the baby. At some point, the baby starts to transition and start tasting and eating adult foods. It's drinking milk and eating adult foods in this kind of, infant adolescent. And then as it moves into adulthood, the mother cuts off that infant mammal from milk forevermore. And the baby is now becoming an adult and will only eat the adult food of that species. So the baby will never have dairy again and will never have the dairy of another species. Now we come to humans, and sometimes I'll, to kind of drive the point home in a shocking way, I'll say to patients, okay, are you still breastfeeding from your mom? It's like, oh, the reaction is no. Oh, that's horrible. I don't even want to think about that. Right. We're not meant to breastfeed from our mothers beyond infancy. That is an abnormal thing. And it starts to actually take on a very yucky aspect. We're supposed to be very averse to that because that is not natural. We shouldn't be drinking milk into adulthood, and we should not be drinking milk of another species. So milk is there to make baby mammals grow fast. If a baby mammal does not grow quickly, it will die. So mTOR that's the time when mTOR is in most overdrive, is infancy, getting milk, getting fat, getting that mTOR signal. This is go time. This is do or die. If we don't turn into an adolescent and into an adult right now, we are going to die. So dairy makes mTOR go crazy, which is why, when adult human patients with acne are drinking dairy or eating dairy in any form, cheese, yogurt, ice cream, it is just absolutely flooring the gas on mTOR. And, the body's almost in a panic. Like, we really have to grow. We really have to build something. Well, if you're 30 years old, what is there to grow? You can grow fat. You can build out more sebum. There's limited things. And it is just a recipe for acne, basically, is to consume dairy as, a non-infant. So.
And when it comes to the elimination of dairy, is it more trial exclusions for you for a period of time that you suggest for someone in the beginning stages, or is it just blanket, no dairy for the foreseeable future?
If we can do it, blanket, no dairy, because sometimes there's a negotiation, like, what about sheeps?
What about Jersey milk? What about
yeah, A2, it's like the negotiation begins, and it's like, okay, there's better dairy and worse dairy, right? Obviously, grass-fed, natural milk from a healthy cow is better than homogenized, pasteurized milk from a cow that's been on antibiotics its whole life to keep it alive. But it's still, ultimately, I say to patients, I can't turn you into a baby cow or a baby sheep or a baby goat. You're never going to be that. This is never going to be an appropriate food for you. Maybe you can get away with some amount after we've balanced everything out, and maybe you can't. So again, sometimes I have patients who they can put some Parmesan on stuff or get away with some cheese here and there. And then I have other patients where they know if they eat dairy, they're going to break out. And then I say, look, information is power. I think part of what's so frustrating for people with acne, especially adults, is like, I don't know what's causing this. I've tried everything, and it's sheer panic. It's so frustrating. Like, I can't control this. That's horrible. At least now I say, you've got the information, and let's say you're going to France, or you want to go to town on cheese. Have fun on your vacation. Eat cheese. If you break out, no big whoop. come back. But let's say you're having a 30th high school reunion and you particularly want to have a clear skin for that. Now you're in the driver's seat. You just take out dairy, for the month before, clean up your skin, and you get to make decisions about what you're going to eat and what your skin looks like. It's better to know than not to know and feel out of control with it. So
Absolutely. And like you said, when it comes to skin concerns, you can so often feel out of control. And it is that sort of lowest hanging fruit, the diet, the elimination of dairy in this instance, minimizing sugar intake, saturated fats, not having excessive red meat, all of those sorts of things can be really useful, but also really important, as we've spoken about in the last few questions, to seek support, I think, when it comes to guidance, because as you said, UCH pylori is a bit of a driver, one of the drivers potentially of acne, and it's not something that maybe the layman's going to be looking at or even thinking about or even know how to treat. So, and also looking at dysbiosis and what you're looking at in the gut microbiome test to sort of support and, rectify or make a bit of a healthier picture. I think getting that guidance and support from someone, a practitioner like yourself, is just gold. They can feel a bit more empowered that way. So when it comes to post-pandemic era, do you see or have you seen a new phenotype of acne at all? Or is it just...
I mean, there was certainly a lot of maskne back in the days of COVID.
I just love that. Can you explain what that is?
Maskne was real.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we're just, right, we're breathing into this, whatever, N95 or cotton or whatever it is, the moisture in it, the bacteria that we're breathing in and out, it's just trapped in there and stuff, it's rubbing on the face. So that was a really big problem for a lot of people during COVID and all the masking era. Now, I don't think any of my patients are having to wear masks anymore. Even the healthcare practitioners aren't. So that's really kind of gone away again. But I think that was the biggest change is, first it was like, is this a thing? And then it was like, oh, no, this is actually, acne is real. So yeah, I mean, sometimes people will wear masks on like long plane rides and stuff. So it can happen, with a little bit of international travel. But once the mask is off, things tend to kind of go back to normal pretty quickly.
Speaking of topical things, people are going to be interested to know what you suggest topically when it comes to acne, skin. Oh, let's discuss acne, obviously, because that's what this conversation is about. And also changing your pillowcase. What should we be doing there? Is it that you change your pillowcase every second day, once a week, once a month? Like, what are those things important in your recommendations when it comes to acne?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. Yeah, so this is the first time we're talking about topicals, but I would like to say, I say that it's a dual-pronged approach to treating skin. So we've talked about the inside out, and now we're talking about the outside in. Very important. There's things we don't want to put on acne-prone skin and things, that we do. Some basic hygiene things. I do think, particularly like if people are like, well, I'm only going to wash my face once a day, that's fine. Washing it before bed. So washing off like the dirt, makeup, whatever's happened during the day before you go to bed. If you're going to only wash your face once a day, wash it before bed. For pillowcases, I mean, I think a reasonable, like at least once a week, you should be doing your sheets and changing pillowcases. If somebody's particularly, oily or having trouble at the beginning, maybe more frequently, but at least once a week, washing it. And then, things that we're putting on the face. There's a couple of things that are comedogenic or clogging. Sometimes people want to moisturize and they'll put coconut oil on their skin.
Ugh.
That's about the worst thing you can do. Coconut oil is very comedogenic. And even people who really don't have a problem with acne could easily break out with something like coconut oil. So just because something is natural does not mean it's going to work well for, the face, chest, neck, back, those high sebum producing areas that we talked about. In terms of what to put on the face, it depends. There's we spoke a little bit about that there can be bacterial overgrowth in the hair follicles, or there's this organism called Malassezia, which is yeast. So some people who have more of that fungal Malassezia type driven acne, there are products out there that are more specific to treating that type of acne. I don't know if you can get it in Australia, but we can in the US. Dermazen makes a very good line of anti-Malassezia products. So they've got everything from shampoo to, you know, face wash and moisturizer and stuff like that. In general, I like to do kind of a 3-step process to start for patients. One is like very clean face wash with I mean, there's a brand in the United States I use called Empire Squid, but they make their stuff. Mountain Rose Herbs is like a holistic farm in Oregon that has very clean products. So they have a very clean face wash, then a toner that can be like hydrosols, witch hazel, aloe, anything of that nature is kind of a step 2. And then step 3, I like oils. And I know this scares a lot of my acne patient at first, but I like oil-based serums with essential oil blends. And you want to use the non-comedogenic or non-clogging oils, and then essential oils that are going to support reducing sebum production. So some good oil bases that tend to do well, because we still need to hydrate and moisturize the skin. I think one mistake people with acne do is like, well, I'm just going to benzoyl peroxide the heck out of it and just dry my skin out. But then the skin will freak out and say, oh my God, we have no moisture, we have no sebum, like quick, we got to produce more sebum. So we don't want to like dry it out to the point where the skin then is trying to like actually produce sebum in response to how dry it is. So bases like grapeseed oil, jojoba, those are some clean liquid oils that you can use on acne prone skin. And then there's a variety of beautiful essential oil blends. I mean, everything from clary sage to lavender to geranium and just a whole host of them. I would say if people aren't familiar with oils and essential oils, then buying products or having somebody who's knowledgeable guide them. Just a note about essential oils. We never want to put them on neat. Neat means that you're putting the essential oil directly on the skin. That's a huge no-no. It can be quite dangerous. You can burn the skin. You can get contact dermatitis, allergic sensitivities to it. So it needs to be mixed into the base, like the carrier oil that we talked about. But they're clean. And they are really great for acne if you can get kind of the right formulas and know what you're doing.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And has your treatment framework adapted in the last few years? Has there been any sort of significant changes with how you do things or what you investigate?
I mean, there's always like refinements and, you know, certain products they're discontinued or you find other ones, but in general, I would say as far as acne goes, it is pretty much the same because it's tried and true, and it really does seem to do the job. You'll get every now and again, just working on the gut, it's not quite doing enough. And then I will investigate hormones. I like the Dutch hormone test. So for the gut microbiome testing, I use the GI map by Diagnostic Solutions and then the OAT by Mosaic. When I want to do hormone investigation, I like the Dutch hormone test, which is a urine test where patients pee on these dried strips of paper and you get a lot of information. You get the androgens, things like the testosterones, dihydrotestosterone, the breakdowns, estrogens. There's 3 types of estrogen: E1, E2, E3, progesterone. You get cortisol, you get melatonin, DHEA. So I get to look at a wide array of hormones. And sometimes there will be hormonal things that I'll need to kind of help right a little bit with herbs and supplements. And it's not what you'd expect. I think people expect, well, if someone is having acne, then for sure it's got to be like high testosterone or high dihydrotestosterone. And that is not at all the case. The more hormone testing I do, the more I see it's not the case. It can be high estrogen, low estrogen, high progesterone. I mean, it's really all over the place. So I never just throw hormonal supplements. Yeah, I never assume and just start trying to treat the hormones without knowing what's in there, because I could very well be doing the exact opposite of what that patient actually needs.
Absolutely. And we've spoken a lot about foods, the Western diet that sort of influence negatively this mTOR pathway. Can we discuss some things that you might be recommending? Obviously, fiber, you mentioned, is a big one. How much fiber are you recommending for someone? And are there particular foods? I'm thinking of when it comes to H. pylori, things that can be beneficial, like your broccoli sprouts and your cranberries. Yeah, cranberries and also berries and those sorts of things. Green tea. Is there anything in particular that you suggest people consume when it comes, like as a broad suggestion for all types of acne that you find
Yes.
beneficial?
Yeah. So every patient has a little bit of homework after the first visit, which is we do like a diet tracking for 3 or 4 days. And I tell them, don't change anything about the way you're eating, eat completely normally. And we're going to track what you're eating. And specifically, we're looking at like add up the fiber for each day and then send me the total amount of fiber for each day. So for my adult patients, the goal is at least 35 grams of fiber a day, at least 30 different plants a week. Now that can include fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, herbs, spices, teas,
Yes.
but 30 is kind of getting the variety. So we want both the quantity of fiber and the variety of fiber. And I have patients play something called the rainbow game, where I tell them, go to the supermarket, go to the produce aisle, do your normal shop. Once you've been around that produce section, stop and go through the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. Look in your basket and find which color groups are missing, and then do a second pass in the produce section. And if they have kids, they can play with the kids. And whatever color groups are missing, they're going to get something in that basket. That really encourages diversity in the diet, because we tend to be creatures of habit. It's efficient. It makes sense. It's like, oh, I've got 50,000 things to do, including go to the market. So you're running around the market, trying to get out and get home and feed the dog or whatever. This slows you down. You actually have to look around. Okay, well, I don't have anything purple. And all of a sudden, just purple starts popping. It's like purple onions, purple cauliflower, purple carrots, purple sweet potatoes.
That's
Wow, there's
great.
so much purple. And so we
Mm.
build it in that way. But those colors are beautiful, and they're beautiful for us in our gut. So the different colors represent different phytonutrients. Like the purple is anthocyanins, and the reds is lycopene, and all of these phytonutrients are wonderful for us. They're wonderful for our skin, antioxidant, anti-cancer, and our gut microbiome loves them. So some of the keystone species we haven't talked about, but like Akkermansia muciniphila or Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, they help really keep the gut healthy. They love those brightly colored fruits and vegetables, like the berries you talked about. And so it's a win-win to get the diversity and the quantity in for us and for our gut microbes. I mean, part of that whole exercise in fiber is, yes, we want to keep the poop moving, but we can't actually digest fiber. Who can digest fiber are our gut microbes, and they eat that fiber, that plant cell wall that we can't even digest, and then they'll make good things for us, like butyrate, which keeps our immune system calm. So it really is like, I tell my patients, think about your gut microbiome like these trillions of pets in your gut that you need to tend for, and the healthier they are, the healthier you are.
Mm.
And it really is a symbiotic commensal relationship. The better we do for them, the better they do for us. And that is the way we've evolved over millions of years. And nothing is going to change that. So,
I love that. Love those suggestions. And I think it's actually a great thing for practitioners to do also, because you'll get to really understand how much of a creature of habit we do become, and how sometimes it can be difficult to get to that 30 plus different plant foods per week.
yeah.
And, diversifying color and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a great little exercise to do for yourself as a practitioner. Um, so in closing, is there anything else that you would like to mention that maybe we haven't discussed in regards to the acne and gut health link?
I think that like there really is hope out there. I mean, I tell my patients, this may sound weird, but from the minute I take you on as a new patient and get you on my schedule, I'm trying to get you off my schedule. And what I mean by that is that, I want to get in, help understand what's going wrong for somebody, help educate that person to fix it. I mean, as a naturopathic doctor, we have docere as a principal, doctor as teacher. I want to teach them while we're working what is going on and how do they fix it. Kind of, we don't get user manuals, but I can teach you with your disease how you can manage it. And then once I get people to a good state, that's when, I want to roll off. Don't see me, no more herbs and supplements. You should be able to live your life acne free if you keep in mind, everything we've been working on. So it's not like Western medicine where it's like, okay, for Accutane or isotretinoin, like we're going to put you on it for 9 months and then we're going to dry up all your sebocytes and then go do what you want to do. No, this is lifestyle. Like all of the principles, all the things that we talk about, these are things that people will continue to go on and do, but it won't just keep their skin healthy and clear. It will really keep everything healthy and clear. So there really are solutions. Yeah. And I think that kind of is a misnomer, like, oh, the only real solution to get rid of acne is to go do all the pharmaceuticals. And that is 100% not true. I've had Accutane failures, which means that they've done Accutane. People will usually clear up immediately, but then it will start to come back. I think the most I've had is a 4-time Accutane failure where they've done it in 4 different cycles and every time it comes back. This, what we are talking about, is root cause medicine. This really does get to the root cause of what's driving it. Instead of a suppressive, we are fixing it from the ground up. And really, if you right the ship in all of these ways, you really can get rid of acne. And I've treated everything from crazy severe nodular cystic acne that you could see across the room to, somebody who just gets a few pimples, but it really bothers them, and everything in between. And it all responds to just getting healthy and getting the body back in homeostasis or balance and where it should be. The body doesn't want to have acne. So we just need to figure out the things to help it get back to normal.
And a few years ago, I did your learnskin.com courses, like many of the modules in there. Do you still have that? And what do you have available to practitioners and patients and, for everyone at the moment? Like, what have you got available?
Yeah,
I found that really valuable back then.
That was pretty old. That was more just based on research. For practitioners, who treat patients with derm complaints and want like clinical, like how do I do this for my patients? I have a course at rootcausedermatology.com, and there's live cohorts. There's none running for the rest of this year, but there's a self-paced course, and it'll take a couple months to work through, but it teaches all the foundational stuff of all the gut and hormones. And then there's 7 of the most common diseases that you would treating dermatology patients. So acne, eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, hair loss, including alopecia areata, keratosis pilaris, forgetting one. But it's all then when we get into the dermatologic diseases case space. So you'll see 5 intensive case studies showing you the lab results, and then how do I create treatment plans for every visit, both oral and topical, the exact supplements, the exact doses, and then you see the photo progression from visit to visit. So there's 35 case studies by the time you get to the end. It's like meant for clinical knowledge, not like, I feel like there's so many functional medicine programs like IFM. It's interesting, it's cool, but you finish the whole thing and it's like, well, I still don't actually know, like there aren't like plans and protocols. It's not really clinically useful.
Yes.
Right out of the bat. This is meant to be like clinically useful, next day in clinic, this is how you're going to treat acne.
Something you can refer to, tweak as you need. Yeah, by the case.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. And I'll pop all of that in the show notes. And then your skin is just a picture of health. And so I think people, has it always been like that? Or have you come across some skin concerns? Because I look at your skin straight away and I'm like, oh, amazing.
I was blessed that I never suffered from, acne or eczema or anything like that. But, I'm 53 now, so life
Amazing.
is happening, and, I don't, begrudge anybody who wants to use, any sort of cosmetics, but I don't. So this is all just healthy, natural skincare, healthy, natural eating. Aging is normal, so
Yes.
I don't
What a privilege,
begrudge
eh?
wrinkles that are, certainly coming. But I do think there's just a lot we can do just naturally to keep ourselves looking youthful and appropriate for our age. Let's say that. That's my goal.
Yeah. Well, amazing. And you do look the picture of health. And so leading by example is one of the biggest things as a practitioner, I think. So thank you again for joining us for the third time on Love and Guts. I've enjoyed our conversation. I always get something out of it. So I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And I listen to the podcast and love it. So thanks for the Love and Guts podcast.
And thanks for sending so many amazing people my way, as in some amazing guests. It's been fantastic. So, guys, if you have enjoyed this conversation or you know someone that needs to hear it, please make sure that you send the episode to them. And while you're at it, please subscribe to Love and Guts so others can find it super easy and fill up on the valuable content that Dr. Julie Greenberg has presented to us today.